Martin Luther King Jr. was born in 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia, to Michael King Sr. and his wife Alberta. His birth name was actually Michael, but his father changed both his and his son's name to Martin, in honor of the German Protestant reformer Martin Luther. Raised in a middle-class family in the segregated South, King was exposed to the racial inequality and injustices. His father was a pastor, and King's upbringing was deeply rooted in Christian faith and values. King attended college in Atlanta, where he became influenced by the works of nonviolent Indian activist Mahatma Gandhi. It was here that he embraced the principles of nonviolent resistance. King's national prominence as a civil rights leader began in 1955 with his involvement in the Montgomery bus boycott. The boycott was sparked by the arrest of Rosa Parks, an African-American woman who refused to give up her seat to a white man on a segregated bus in Montgomery, Alabama. King was chosen to lead the boycott, which was organized by the local African-American community in Montgomery to protest the city's policy of racial segregation on public buses. The boycott became a major success. African-Americans in Montgomery refused to ride the buses, which severely impacted the bus company's finances. King, though facing tremendous pressure and threats from white supremacists, remained steadfast in his commitment to nonviolent resistance. The success of the boycott was a major turning point in the civil rights movement, and King's leadership earned him widespread recognition. A key element of King's leadership was his belief in nonviolence. King believed that nonviolence was not only a moral strategy, but also the most effective way to confront oppressive systems without perpetuating hatred or violence. He argued that the struggle for civil rights could not be won through violence or hatred, but only through peaceful protest and dialogue. This philosophy was evident in the way King led marches, boycotts, and other forms of protest, always encouraging his followers to remain peaceful even in the face of violence. King's leadership was instrumental in securing major legislative victories during the civil rights movement. In 1964, after years of relentless protests and advocacy, King saw the passage of the Civil Rights Act, which outlawed discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. The law was a monumental achievement in the fight for racial equality, as it prohibited segregation in public places, employment discrimination, and unequal treatment in education. In 1965, King led a series of marches in Selma, Alabama, to demand voting rights for African Americans. The marches were met with violent resistance from law enforcement. This ultimately led to the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which aimed to eliminate discriminatory voting practices such as literacy tests and poll taxes. Despite his achievements, King faced significant challenges and opposition throughout his life. His advocacy for racial equality made him a target of the white supremacist establishment, and he was frequently harassed, arrested, and subjected to violence. King's home was bombed during the Montgomery bus boycott, and he received numerous death threats throughout his career. He was also criticized by some African-American Muslim movement who believed his commitment to nonviolence was too passive and not radical enough. King's stance on the Vietnam War also brought him into conflict with some political and civil rights leaders. In 1967, King publicly opposed the war, citing its disproportionate impact on poor and Black Americans and its diversion of resources from social programs aimed at addressing poverty and inequality. His criticism of the war was controversial and led to a decline in his popularity among some segments of the American public. However, King remained firm in his belief that the struggle for peace and justice was interconnected, and that the fight for civil rights could not be separated from broader issues of global peace and economic justice. On April 4, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was tragically assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee, while he was supporting a sanitation workers' strike. His death shocked the nation and sparked riots in many cities across the United States. King's assassination was a devastating loss for the civil rights movement and the country as a whole, but it also solidified his status as a martyr for the cause of racial equality and justice.